Alright, XRP is inefficient for swift scale settlement. Expert proves that XRP needs $500 to $1,000. Now, what if I told you that the biggest argument for XRP hitting $500 or even $1,000 isn't hype, chart patterns, or speculative retail FOMO? What if the real reason XRP must achieve a massive valuation is purely down to cold, hard mathematics and basic operational efficiency? Right now, a groundbreaking piece of data is circulating in the financial world. An expert analyst on X named DigitalG shared a brilliant mathematical exercise that turns standard price predictions upside down. Instead of asking how high the price can go based on retail demand, this exercise asks a much more logical question. How much liquidity does the global financial system actually need to operate? When you look at the raw data, a shocking reality emerges that its current public price of approximately $1.06 XRP is mathematically incapable of running global finance. It is simply too inefficient. So in this video, we are breaking down the exact numbers, looking at how the global messaging network SWIFT fits into this ecosystem, and exploring why a high valuation is actually a functional requirement for central banks. Now, let's start with our very first question about why is XRP at $1.06 functionally broken for global banks. So to understand why a low price fails the system, we have to look at the sheer scale of international volume. Analyst DigitalG structured a simulation showing exactly what happens when you try to route massive capital through a low-priced asset. The model graciously assumes that XRP can be recycled 10 times every single day due to its rapid transaction speed. Even with that high velocity, the numbers at $1.06 do not work. According to the data, if the network needs to settle just $1 trillion in daily payments, it would require a staggering 94.3 billion XRP tokens in active circulation at a $1.06 price point. If you scale that up to a more realistic $10 trillion per day, the system would need 943.4 billion XRP. There is only one glaring issue, and that's the maximum total supply of XRP to ever exist is locked at 100 billion tokens. Now here's my opinion. This is the exact breakthrough realization that separates casual traders from long-term strategic thinkers. The token supply is a fixed ceiling. You cannot cram $10 trillion of daily transactional volume into a bucket that only holds 100 billion drops, unless each drop is worth significantly more. It is like trying to empty an entire ocean using a standard plastic thimble. The physics of global liquidity demand that the asset carrying the value must hold a much higher concentration of purchasing power. A low price isn't just frustrating for holders. It is an absolute operational failure for an international settlement network. Now, how does the true scale of global money movement break the low price narratives? To make matters even more intense, another financial commentator named Henry PCR, right here, Henry PCR, added critical context on X regarding the actual size of electronic payment systems. SWIFT alone processes roughly $5 trillion every single business day, leading to about $1.25 quadrillion annually. When you cheap at $400 trillion, when you add cheap at $400 trillion and Fedwire at $900 trillion, the numbers become truly astronomical. Swift handles approximately 11.5 million payment messages daily, with an average transaction size sitting around $45,000. If XRP is intended to become the underlying bridge currency for this massive web of value, it has to accommodate these multi-trillion dollar pools seamlessly without causing massive market slippage or running out of available tokens. Now, here's my opinion. When you look at a quadrillion dollar financial landscape, you quickly realize the retail concept of market cap becomes completely irrelevant. The institutional world doesn't care about our traditional definitions of valuation. They care about liquidity depth. If an international bank wants to move $50 billion instantly, they cannot do it on a ledger where the token is valued at $1.06 because they would absorb the entire available circulating supply in a single transaction, causing catastrophic price distortions. To act as a friction-free pipeline, the asset needs deep liquidity pools that can only exist if the individual unit price is drastically higher. Now, why does an efficiency model mandate a price between $500 and $1,000? This brings us to the core conclusion of DigitalG's mathematical exercise. To achieve peak efficiency for a network handling $10 trillion a day, the ideal price for XRP must sit securely between $500 and $1,000. So let's look at how beautifully the math cleans up those higher tiers. At a price of $500 per token, the required liquidity to settle $10 trillion a day drops to 2 billion XRP. It's here. If the asset scales to $1,000, the operational requirement to a mere 1 billion XRP. The operational requirement drops to a mere 1 billion XRP. Suddenly, the system goes from choking on an impossible token deficit to breathing easily with an abundance of excess capacity. Now, here's my opinion. This is the ultimate paradigm shift. A price of $500 or $1,000 per token is not a wild, speculative fantasy born out of internet hype. It is a structural necessity for systemic efficiency. From my standpoint as a market observer, institutions will actively prefer a high-priced token because it minimizes the total volume of assets they have to manage, settle, and secure. A higher unit value provides a smoother, safer transaction pathway for cross-border settlements, reducing friction to absolute zero. And finally, here's our overall conclusion. When you stripe away the social media noise and ground your perspective purely in systemic logistics, the reality becomes undeniable. XRP's utility is tied directly to its capacity to move money. If the world's major clearinghouses, central banks, and legacy networks transition toward distributed ledger technology, they cannot operate on an asset priced like a penny stock. The math proves that for XRP to successfully scale to the multi-trillion dollar requirements of the global financial system, its value must rise significantly to meet the demands of international liquidity. The future of institutional settlement depends entirely on a high value asset, making a 3-digit or 4-digit token on an inevitability of economic design rather than a simple prediction. And this finally ends our video. Thank you very much for watching, and see you on the next one, or you might just as well check this next recommended video right here.